America is facing a seismic shift, and to get the stories behind the noise, the media sound bites, social media, and big data, we spoke with a cross section of Americans in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement.
Based on what we heard, if we're to unite this nation, we're going to need to foster change from the bottom up, together. No one is coming to save us. This is part one of a 6-part web series on the struggles facing Americans and what we as citizens can do to become part of a more perfect union. The sheer force of our middle class has been our driving economic engine and cultural foundation for 70 years. It's how we define ourselves as American, and it's what we've aspired to be, poor and rich alike.
Buying a nice house and sending our kids to college still remains the American dream. It's our birthright, and it's pretty fundamental to who we are.
We all thought we were middle class. And everybody in my neighborhood, we always talked about we were middle class kids. But we all lived in those apartment buildings and all that other stuff. So expectations, were really significantly different. We never took a vacation, right? We went and stayed at my Uncle Art's over 4th of July or things like that. He came down, and when he came down, I slept between 2 chairs because we didn't have enough beds to go around and what have you. We never saw people that had anything, you know what I mean? There were no wealthy people that we knew. Everybody we knew, just worked.
Traditionally, we've seen ourselves as rugged individualists, believing that through hard work, we can realize this birthright. Whether we were farmers, factory workers, or Black people that migrated to the North to raise a new generation.
My parents came from the great state of Mississippi. When I was 9 years old, my dad decided he needed to move to Chicago because he had heard there were lots of jobs there, and he wanted to get his 2 sons out of a place that he believed they would have no life. And so he moved us to Chicago. He gave us a great college education. The one thing that he would always say, though, is, now you need to pay that forward. And the way he demonstrated that, and he did it, is when my younger uncle was of age, he was the first one to come to Chicago. My grandmother asked my father if he could bring him to Chicago to live with us. So he lived with us for a year. He got married. His wife lived with us. They lived with us for another 6 months. And they struck out on their own. My other uncle came. He lived with us for a year. He struck out on his own. We had more people in and out of that house because my mother and my father always believed that there is a place for somebody to stay. There is another seat at the table. There is more food than we can ever eat. And so you are bound by this thing to help other people, to help people who are in your family and to help people who are not in your family.
My dad was a builder, and him and Mom bought property out in the country, and he built a barn. And we ended up living on the 2nd floor of our barn for 4 years while he built the house. And we worked our butts off, to earn everything that we had. And I am so thankful to both of my parents for that.
Since I was 9 years old, my mom would make me go clean houses with her. So I was cleaning toilets at 9 years old, learning how to earn my money, right? So it was like, oh, do you want to go to the mall? We're not going to give you $20. You can go work for it. Then you get $20. Then you could get that limited 2 t-shirt that you wanted. I was kind of shown what hard work was through my mom's work. They instilled in me kind of like those kind of value systems to always have kind of emergency fund and always do what you say you're going to do, just kind of core values that allow me to be who I am.
The American dream is still alive because I was born in the Dominican Republic. I came here when I was 10. And there's a lot of things that we offer here that are not offered overseas. So I know that once you're here, we can become a little ungrateful and maybe a little spoiled because we know what we can get. But when you live in another country, and I lived okay in Dominican Republic, I would say I was middle class, but I've seen the poverty and I've seen what people go through. And we offer a lot of great things that we forget about in this country that it's not offered over there. My brother is mentally challenged, and here they provide the world for a child with a disability. When you're in another country, you're on your own. You're on God's good grace. Like here, if you want to go to college, you take out a loan. But the dream is still alive if you work really hard.
But it's becoming more and more elusive for future generations. We call this the middle class slide.
The number of Americans struggling to get by is greater than the number of baby boomers. And in the 2020 Social Progress Index, we rank 28th in the world, behind Estonia and Czech Republic. We have the best universities, but rank 91 in the quality of education. We're leaders in medical technology, but are 97th in healthcare.
You know, my dad owned a gas station, like a mom and pop gas station, and we were probably upper middle class growing up. We drove out to Arizona or Florida every year on vacation. My dad bought a brand new truck every 2 years. They didn't have a credit card. They didn't have an ounce of debt. But I think their house cost like $4,000. You know what I mean? Like
It's a different world.
So it's so hard because I personally keep comparing myself to that standard, and I'm like, shit. We are a train wreck.
You know, you feel like, oh, I should have myself together. And it's not until like you find like those one or two people where you open up where you're just like, oh my God, like I don't know what I'm going to do. And they're like, oh my God, we just got the foreclosure notice on our house. We know. And I'm like, no way. You know, like I call it like the Facebook world. Like you present like this best picture of yourself because that's what you want to show.
Like we're in our mid 40s right now. Mm-hmm. We still live paycheck to paycheck. And I know that that's so common, but it still feels to a certain extent like there's some failure. Like, and my mom is the queen about like, you've got to put this money away. And I'm like, oh shit. But I also have a washing machine that needs to get fixed. There's trim that needs to like we're not living an extravagant life. So, post Corona, just figuring out some way to actually get that nest egg, and not even a nest egg at this point, retirement built up so that we don't have to work till we're 80 years old,
The cost of housing and the inability of people to start to build real estate wealth over time. I mean, real estate's been the single greatest investment in my life, right? I mean, it trumps everything from that perspective. We bought our first house, right? It's $22,000. There's no way in hell that people can do that today, and it's too bad.
By the numbers that I read and in the news, our income level is technically middle class, but is living in the trailer park middle class? Because that's really sad.
The cost of education is sort of unconscionable at this point, right? For most people. I mean, I went to school. I had not free, but almost free education, and my aggregate cost for going to 4 years of school had to be under $1,500. That was really important, and so it changed the equation for my family.
Student loan debt, I'm telling you, that comes back every single time. It's ruined our credit, so that we can't buy a car if we need to. The student loan institution is fundamentally just lodged against people that like us, I think, you know?
I feel like if you're really poor, we could have so many things available for us. Or if we were even $100,000 a year wealthier, we'd have more things available to us. But there's this pocket of the working poor where
middle class.
You are literally the backbone of society as you support everybody else.